Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sandy, and right behind me is my newly assembled HM130 Max by Woodland Mills. This is what I got up to last time around. Hopefully you guys saw that assembly video. What we're up against today is I'm going to finally take this thing, which is 99% complete, and I'm going to take it that last 1% and start cutting some wood with it. But in order to do that, obviously I got to brush off the snow, which sort of caught me off guard. If you saw the last video, it was quite warm out here, and there was certainly no indication that snow was coming back. But regardless, I'm going to brush off the snow. I'm going to get a battery in there, get some oil in the engine, put some fuel in there, make sure that all the cables are nice and tight as they should be, check the throttle cable, make sure the blade's tracking right, and go from there. So that's what we're going to do today. Finally, at the end of this video, I'm hoping to get a log put up here, hoping to cut it. And if my last sawmill is any indication, that cut will be perfect. So what I'm referring to is that unit right there, my 2017 HM130, which I've been using for the last several years. That thing, pretty solid unit, and well, that thing's cut an awful lot of wood for me, including that stack you see there, and the wood for this building and for this building and all kinds of other stuff. Anyways, let's get down to it. Glad you guys are here. Here we go. So if you guys are following along closely and you did see the other video, what I've done since that time, I've actually taken these little tabs and I've just secured them into the position they go, both at the rear and the front on both sides of the sawmill. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a measurement from the back of the sawmill up. I think it's 64.5 inches. I'll check the manual, and then I'm going to drill some holes. Those holes will allow me to put some pins in, these guys right here. And these pins are what's going to secure that sawmill to the trailer when I'm going down the road. So let's do that. So at this point, I'm trying to get the blade on the sawmill parallel to the log bunk. And so in order to do that, I lowered the saw head all the way down until it stops. And then I took this 3/4 inch piece of wood, and I'm actually checking to make sure that it's 3/4 of an inch from the underside of the blade to the top of the log bunk there. and equally the same on this side. If those are the same, then we know that that is parallel, that blade, to the log bunk. Now, you don't have to use a block of wood, but you can also use a tape measure and check the measurement. Once that's parallel, and now I am confident it is parallel, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tension the cables, and I'll tension them right there, and we'll tension them just so that they are snug or tight without raising the saw head. And then we know that we have everything set up as needed. And that little bit of rust that I'm sure some of you guys are noticing on the blade, it's actually just a touch of surface rust. The reason it's there is I didn't have the saw covered, and it's been sitting probably about a week in some harsh conditions. So that goes away very, very quickly once you run it through some wood. So normally what I'd do right now is I'd put lubrication in the lube tank. You guys can tell here, judging by the attention symbol, do not run lubricant for the initial 30 minutes of milling. Run the blade dry to break in the belts. After the break-in period, follow the lubricant guidelines listed below. 1 degree Celsius and warmer, water with 1 teaspoon of liquid dish soap. If you're at 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit and cooler, winter washer fluid. So today it's definitely cold out. I would normally be putting washer fluid in there, but as it says there, we're going to let it go for the first half hour before we add lube. All right, I'm just checking for belt deflection here. So I'm looking at this belt, the driven wheel here. So 1/4 inch is okay. You don't want any more than 1/4 inch. If there's more than 1/4 inch, then I'll have to make some adjustments. I would say we're good there. So that is factory set. I haven't touched this thing at all. So that looks quite good. So I think we can leave her. One thing that's kind of handy for guys like me are these little red tags here. They're all over the place. Well, at least in these two spots, you can see this one here, which was mounted right there. It tells me that I need to check that tension on that belt after 1 hour of use, just in case, as you guys know, with the new belt, it stretches just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but obviously not until we get things in operation. These stickers are kind of handy too. This belt here is quite a bit different than the belt that's on my 2017 HM130. And so this belt, if I didn't see that sticker, I might not know that it was supposed to ride loose, because my other one, being something different, does not ride loose. So kind of nice right there. I'm just getting ready to tension the blade, and you guys can see here, what page are we on? Page 71. So there's this table here, which is kind of nice. You'll notice it talks about what happens when there's low tension, good tension, and high tension. It sort of shows what type of tracking, cuts, and things of that nature you might expect. That's kind of handy. For me, I'm in the 20 to 25 foot-pound range. Now, there's different methods in order to tension this blade, whereas my older sawmill only had the one method that was using a torque wrench. I'm going to stick with using a torque wrench set to 25 foot-pounds, just because that's what I'm used to. But if you didn't want to do that, kind of nice that there are options out there. And they talk about them over here. Count turns method. So you can actually count the number of turns, obviously. I'm using the torque wrench method. And then the third method, the flush bearing method. And that'll probably be something that I learn, just the same as the count turn methods. But for now, we're sticking with the torque wrench. 25 foot-pounds. Here we go. Oh, there it is. Get that end out of there. There we go. One thing I thought that's worth mentioning for you guys who are setting this up just like I am, on page 29 of your owner's manual for the Sawmill, what we're looking at here is the cross section of the log bunk. Here's the actual log stop. What I'm going to do is put that T-handle in just a minute. But you'll notice there are these two bolts. These two bolts can go into position if your log stop is not at 90 degrees when tightened with that T-handle. Check out what I mean here. So if we look back here, I just put this T-handle in a minute ago into one of the log stop positions. This is one of the short log stops. When that goes in there, and I'm going to try to hold this with one hand, and there we go. When that goes in there, you tighten the T-handle, and you guys can see this is supposed to form a perfect 90-degree angle between the log stop and the log bunk. If that's not 90 degrees, there's actually bolts with nuts that you can thread in back here, and they're supposed to help you guys with getting this to 90 degrees. Now, I'm very fortunate. I already put this one in position. I ran the speed square up there. It is 90 degrees, and so I'm good to go there. I'll just go through and check the other ones, but that's there. And as I mentioned, that's in your owner's manual on page 29. Worth looking at. Well, the battery I had is definitely not going to fit. And so I think that is, what are we going to do? I think I might just jerry rig it there for now. Obviously, I'll have to get a slightly smaller battery. All right, guys. Well, most people would probably at this point get in the car and drive to the store and buy a correct size battery. Today is not the day for me to do that. I am on the brink of getting this thing going. I'm not going to let that battery hold me up for now. On a different episode, I'll get a battery, we'll put it in there, and you'll see the electric start. If you've been around the channel for the last several years, you would have seen me pull starting my old HM130 behind me. It's got the exact same engine, the 14 horsepower Kohler, and so I can't imagine this will be any different. We're going to pull start this from brand new. Some of you guys out there are saying you're crazy because you got electric start. Well, I don't have a battery, so I've got two pieces. I only have one of them. Let's fire up the old engine here and see if we can pull this thing over. All right, choke is full, fuel is on. I got the key turned to the position there. I think we're good. I kid you not, okay? You guys can believe what you want, but I kid you not here. That is the very first pull I've ever put on that engine. I haven't done anything special to it, and if you look around here, it's actually pretty cold out today. I think we're right around the freezing mark. So that's pretty impressive. I'm happy with that. Now let's just keep her going. It's one of those things I find, you just got to find the sweet spot. Now I'm at half choke. Maybe we'll go back to full choke. Oh yeah, I took the choke off. I think we had too much fuel at the end. First thing I'm noticing, you guys see how quiet that thing is? If I were to fire up my other 14 horse Kohler, that thing must be having a I don't know, maybe the muffler's wearing out a bit, but this thing ever quiet. There we go. Normally what I do with this thing at this point is I listen for that ting sound. That ting sound is the premature engagement of the centrifugal clutch. I don't hear it here, so the idle must be set pretty good. We're gonna let that thing warm up. I want the oil to flow around a little bit, let the fuel get through the carb and everything, and we'll get to cutting wood. Here we go. Alright guys, that's the very first time I've cut a piece of wood on a trailer like that. I got to tell you, the other one that's mounted low, that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. I didn't bend over at all. In fact, I felt like I was maybe getting a little bit of back relief, so maybe some of you guys are right after all. Another thing I can tell you, that blade fresh out of the gate, that thing is razor sharp. I don't quite know if it's perfectly set up yet, but I think it is. Everything sounds good, everything feels good. I'll probably just listen for some vibrations, make sure nothing sounds like it's loose, and just continue on as normal. But I got to tell you, that right there is a beautiful thing. Yet with the new one. I was just checking the height of the log stops. Obviously, if you're going to cut them, you're probably going to cut them on one of the first go-around. I just shut it off just for a second. I wanted to show you guys something that wasn't obvious to me right off the start, but after running it just for a second pass there, I did notice it. So I had suspicion that the RPMs wasn't high enough, and I think that is in fact the case. And I'll show you how I figured that out. So I was coming back here thinking I would make my next cut, and you'll notice the throttle lever here, it sort of sits in this position. It doesn't spring all the way back, and I thought to myself, well, I better make sure that this isn't too tight and it's restricting it, but it's not that. And so then I thought, well, maybe the cable itself is not being pulled back enough. It's not springing back because there's too much slack, and that's exactly what the issue is. And if you guys have a look here, watch the housing on the throttle cable. See how there's that movement of the actual housing without the cable moving? That in itself is what the issue is. That should be right tight up here. being pulled by that spring. So I have to take that slack out, and in order to do that, I'm going to make some adjustments right here, and that way the handle, when it's back to idle, it's in this position. So see it in that position. Now let's go look at the difference. You guys see that right there? That's the problem. That housing should be right in there, like in there somewhere. So the trouble is this screw, I need to loosen it, and then I'll take up the slack on that cable, and that way probably will rev a little bit higher when I'm using the lever. I'm just pulling with my right hand on the cable, and that way I'm making sure that the housing is fully seated, pulling on my cable with the right hand, and then I'll tighten that screw. And that should be a lot better. Let's go try her out. I gotta say, the first two cuts, you guys will have to chalk that up as a brand new rookie mistake. I didn't have the thing, didn't have the throttle cable tensioned enough. You saw me just make that change. Obviously, it's now where it needs to be, and it's cutting even better than it did. So all is good. Hear that ting sound every once in a while? Right there. That's the sound of that centrifugal clutch, as I mentioned, starting to engage prematurely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the idle. Obviously, you don't want to do too much. I don't hear the ping anymore, so I'm going to turn it up until I do. Right there, it's just starting. Turn it down just a little. All right, we're going to roll that. tell you, after the first cut, generally you know what you're working with, and I'm quite happy to say that that is looking beautiful. That's a 1.5 inch by 4 inch 2x4, and yeah, that thing cut beautifully. The log is not frozen, so it is going through it quite well regardless. Can't say anything. I don't know, it's great. Guys, there you go. That's my very first cut with my very first log on my newly assembled HM130 Max. One thing I can tell you, I am generally pretty skeptical when it comes to new pieces of equipment. I normally anticipate something going wrong, and so you would have seen me cutting probably a little bit slower than I could have. But if something's going to break, in my experience, it breaks right at the start. I was paying pretty close attention. I was listening to things that were off. I was watching. I didn't sense anything was going to break on me, nor did it. And so I'm pretty happy to report that this is going to work out really, really well for me. But if it's any indication, my other one back behind me, it's put a lot of miles on, so I'm expecting the exact same thing out of this one. Just general comments about this. I do like the height. You guys have told me time and time again, by having that mounted on the ground, it's probably harder on my body. Yeah, I sort of get what you're saying now. Now that I've had it at this height, it is kind of nice to have it a bit higher. I'm not slouching over, I'm looking out. And so that's probably going to be something that I get used to and probably enjoy over the long term. The other thing I noticed was the blade that came on this is incredibly sharp. I didn't feel any hesitation whatsoever. And so that's no cheap blade that's on there. I'm pretty sure that's a half decent one. So I'll be running that for a while longer. Other than that, I got nothing to report. Normally I'd have lots to say, but I'm pretty excited. I can tell you that much. If there was something that I thought was going to be off here, you guys would hear about it. I'm just a normal Joe, just like everyone else out there, trying to make a piece of lumber, save a buck or two, and I can tell you I think that's going to help me do it. So some beautiful 2x4s we just made back here. You guys saw me hold them up, and I was looking down them to see what type of cut was made on them, seeing if there was any bows or waves or anything of that nature in the wood. Didn't see any dipping or anything of that, and so I'm pretty happy. So guys, make sure you come back next time, because I'm going to be putting this thing into action even more so. And the fact that it's on wheels is going to allow me to cut not just in this location, but out yonder, wherever that takes me. So if you have any questions at all, make sure you put it down below. If you guys have an experience with this thing, I'd be happy to hear it, because as you know, I am brand new to this. And so I can learn some stuff, and it can be from you guys. You guys all be well, happy sawing, and I'll see you next time.